Good day, family and friends. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Colette Alethea, and I'm so glad you can make it with me. And thank you for joining me for my debut podcast, The Roaring 30s, where we examine the highs and the lows, the side eyes, and all the dramas of being 30 plus. Thank you for joining me. So just before we get started, I just want to encourage you that today is a new day, and yes, you can get it right. Don't ever feel like you can't get it right because you did something yesterday that you know you shouldn't have done. You can always correct it. You can most definitely start again. So quickly, if you're wondering what this podcast is all about, well, it's all about highlighting the struggles and triumphs of being 30 plus. Because my friend, who could have prepared us for all the dramas and all the serious decisions we'd be having to make? Like, I am so ready to dive into some of these hot topics with you guys because for a long time, I really just thought it was just me having serious anxiety, but honestly, it's not. And I think that we can move together and triumph together and find solutions together. So let's get into it. So my hope is that each week that you join me, you don't feel so alone. You get to laugh, you get to heal, get advice, and really just get whatever you need from this podcast. So those who don't know me, get to know me. Again, my name is Colette Alethea, and I am an amazing human being. I'm flawed and all, but still rising. Did you catch that positive affirmation? Yep, that's what we do here. I am a mother of 3 beautiful children, and that literally, they light up my world. I love them, love them, love them. And I'm also partnered to an amazing human being. My background is in radio broadcasting. I studied at Seneca, York, then did a lot of volunteering at community radio stations and online radio stations. And then I decided to go back to school for communications, but it wasn't really for me, and I ended up dropping out. So for many, many years, I became very confused as to what direction I should take. I tried everything in the book, from multi-level marketing, managing stores, and doing various customer service jobs, but they just didn't stick. It just wasn't for me. So once I started having my children, my focus shifted, and now I'm back to exploring my options and finding my place here in this world through radio broadcasting. So over a period of me trying to get that pat on the back, since I dropped out of York, my good friend and I started a nonprofit organization called Ronu Outreach Inc. And we focus heavily on doing workshops in Jamaica for youth, and started to do a few in Canada as well. And anyone who knows me knows how much I love volunteer work. I love it. It brings me so much joy and fulfillment. It helps me to stay grounded as a human being and just really give back, because it is our humanity. It is our calling that everyone should be able to give back in any capacity they can to those who need it the most, right? So it's such a big passion of mine. Also, lastly, I am a business-minded person, and I'm always looking to expand myself in various business arenas. So I'm just okay, I like that idea. I'm going to try that out. That's me. So that's just a little bio about me. And of course, there is more to me than that. But if you stick along for the ride, you'll get to know me a little bit better. So let's get into this topic. Are we racing against time? So imagine as children, we couldn't wait to be adults. You remember your mom getting dressed up, looking good. Oh, I'll be back. I'm going to the grocery store. And you're like, man. And you have to stay home, babysit. And you're like, man, I wish I could go out too, do what I want to do, be out with my friends or whatever. And that was us, right? We couldn't wait to be adults. And then boom, you're 30 and you're like, boy, I didn't even know life was like this. Why didn't my mom tell me? My mom carried her 30s so gracefully. I had no idea she was doing backflips and trying to figure it all out and providing for her children. It's obvious that your parents were doing so much for you, but when you're in your 30s and you realize what they were really doing for you, then you're like, whoa, I had no idea. How did you do that? Right? So you get to your 30s, and you like in your mind, you're like, okay, so my 20s were great, and now I'm in my 30s, and in 10 years I'm gonna be 40. So what have I done with my life? You ask yourself, what have you been doing, and what steps do I need to take? And usually we ain't gonna hear this word or this phrase a lot throughout this podcast. We go into like a survival mode. What do we need to do, and how can we get the results as fast as possible? So the very first thing I think that we do, this is what I did, right, is that we have a lot of regrets. We dwell on the mistakes, and because of the mistakes that we've made, like maybe not being prepared financially, probably not making the best decision when it came to our careers, and just various other things, we automatically go into survival mode. Like, okay, we need to find results, and we need to find it fast because I'm 30 and my life does not reflect what Instagram is showing me, and I need to get it together, And let me just make a very big disclaimer. I just feel like us in our 30s, we are the biggest, like, we front hard because we have smartphones, we take pictures, we post, we have great captions. Hello, anybody out there? And like, we are not where we want to be at all, but we do have this thing about us where we have to be showing that we're doing something, or we're like, wow, I'm not doing anything at all, So I think that in the midst of dealing with the mistakes that we've made in our past, or trying to bounce back from what we've done in our past, we put up a big front to try to look like all that in the mega chips, when that is farthest from the truth. So in having to find a way to pick up where we left off, I feel like a lot of us don't have a game plan. We have a plan, but not a good game plan. So what do I mean by like not having a good game plan? What I mean is we don't take like little steps to get to the bigger goal. I think when you realize, like for me, when I was turning 30 and I was pregnant with my daughter Soraya, I was having anxiety attacks. Like, yo, what have I done myself? What do I have to show for it? What am I going to do? And automatically I was like setting out these big goals for myself, but didn't know how to achieve them because I didn't know how to break down those big goals to smaller goals. I really didn't know how to. And for years, like between 30 and 32, I should say, I struggled. I could not keep my hands on anything long enough to master it. So last year, 32, it just dawned on me, because everything in my life, which one day I'll share this story with you, but it seemed like everything in my life just came to a big screeching halt, and I literally had to wait on God to like turn things around. And I think that was my first big problem, was that I was waiting on God to turn things around, when God is like saying, my girl, I just need you to focus on the small goals. Please master them, and then we can move on to the big goals, because the big goals, you can't manage them. You're just not there yet. And that's big people talk. You're not disciplined enough to handle big goals, Colette. So we're going to scale it back, and we're going to get you to like focus on the small goals. And that was a big slap in the face for me, but it was great, and it was what I needed. So these little small goals, which I want to get into later on in the podcast, allowed me to really set up a strong foundation and a very good game plan for my family, and bring my family where we need to be now, right? So I'm really like into the whole game plan and really breaking it down to like the lowest common denominator. So in having a game plan, it allows us to dismiss trying to make up for lost time. and it dismisses this feeling of anxiety. And if you have anxiety, you can't make any good decisions, period. So it makes sense to slow it down, have a game plan, break it down to allow the lowest common denominator, and completely forget about the time you have quote unquote lost. You were living your life. Life happens, and life is gonna happen, and it is what it is for what it is. But you hanging on to the fact that, oh my God, I lost so much time and now I'm in my 30s and what am I doing myself, and I got like 7 more years till I'm 40. Just chill, stop, breathe, have a game plan, and take it one day at a time. Because that's the best thing that you can do instead of having these major anxiety attacks and being in survival mode and still coming out with nothing. It doesn't make any sense. I think the biggest thing about being 30 plus and still trying to find your way and still feeling like you are racing against time is explaining where you are in your life to others, which really you don't have to. Your people are your people. Your people are going to be there for you. They're going to love you for who you are. They're going to accept you for who you are. They're going to give you hard advice if you need it. You know what I'm saying? And they're going to praise you in the times where you really need it the most. So explaining to people where you are is not exactly necessary, because I find that when we try to explain to people, for example, you see somebody you haven't seen like in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they say, what are you doing yourself? And you don't have a firm answer to give them. Then all of a sudden, this guilt just starts to step in. This guilt that has no place in your life, because remember, you're setting goals, starts to set in. And who has time for guilt? And again, with this whole Instagram society that we live in, all people are showing us when they say to us, this is what I'm doing, is a picture of themselves, right? But that's all it is. It's just the outside of the house. It's not the inside workings, the inner workings, I should say, right? So when we are talking about like where we are in life and we are not very confident about it, keep it very simple. I'm just doing me right now. Or, I write podcasts. Like, just keep it very simple and be confident in who you are, especially if you have a serious game plan. Because that's the most important thing. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, because that's what matters. It's not even like the things that you have accumulated being in your 30s. It's what you're doing, so that way the rest of your life is set on a strong foundation, period. Most fulfilling feeling ever is knowing that you got you, right? So trying to explain to people and feeling that guilt factor, knock that out of the park. That is nobody's business. You don't have to front, but you don't need to put yourself down or make yourself feel bad because you're not where you always thought you would be. Leave that alone and just focus on the things that you need to get done. And do so with diligence and grace and a smile on your face, right? What I would definitely tell my 30-year-old self, even though that was just 3 years ago, is to stop and breathe and work on yourself. And what does that mean? It means, okay, there are books out there that talks about being financially stable. Great. So we know we can get resources. Perfect. But the most important thing that you need to focus on is developing yourself as an individual. So going back to last year when everything just came to a halt in my life and I had to stop and sit down, I remember realizing that, Colette, you're about to have 3 children and you lack certain things, and that's because you're not disciplined enough. Period. Okay, so you want to be financially free? Perfect. But you're not disciplined enough to be financially financially free. You don't even have a schedule for your children. Simple. You don't even have a routine for every day. Every day you wake up and it's a whim. How do you expect then to be financially stable, to own a home, to be an entrepreneur or business-minded person when the simplest things that you need to have like a grip on, you have not even mastered. You haven't even taken the time to master. So I decided that I was going to focus on managing my children. I literally, not even managing, and finances are very important, but I had to get down to like the nitty gritty of things. So discipline for my children and time management with my children and forecasting what they're going to eat. Like seriously, like cooking on a Sunday and ensuring that, okay, I prepped their meals. This time slot is for Gabriel to do his schoolwork. This is their bath time. Like I had to strip everything down to the lowest common denominator. Now a year later, I know how to manage my kids and the times that things need to get done. Then when I mastered that, my eyes started to open up to other areas of my life that I could start to master. Then I started saying, okay, now Colette, now that you've mastered this or you're working on it, now you can start looking at your career. Because I have a discipline in my home, right? First. So that's what I mean by stop, breathe, dig deep. Because this foundation that you're setting for yourself, you're absolutely going to need it for the rest of your life. Period. You're just going to need it. And if we continue to behave in survival mode and try to grab everything in arm's reach, like as fast as we can, and we don't try to master certain things in our lives, we are going to be living like this. Like you're going to reach 40 and be like, oh my goodness, what did I do with myself? I'm 40. I only have 10 years to get together because then I'll be 50. And I don't think we're called to live like that. I think we're called to live comfortable. Not that life is going to be easy, but we need to have a firm foundation. And it can't always be building a house on sand and building temporary situations. But if we continue in survival mode, if we continue not being able to master certain things in our lives so that we can master greater things in our lives, we are going to be living on sand. I don't know. I don't know any house that could withstand any hurricane on sand. But having a firm foundation, building a solid rock is the most important thing for you. And yourself is that solid rock. Yes, biblically, it is God. Of course, God over everything. But right after that, having that faith in God, you need to build you. And then you can build anything else that you want on top of that. Because finances, a house, a car comes from, discipline and knowing who you are as an individual. So I would say get out of survival mode. Stop trying to grab everything in arm's reach because it doesn't make any sense. You're going to sink, right? And be very clear with your vision. And it's all gravy after that. Be very clear with your vision. Sit down, close your eyes. This is what I want to do in the next 10 years. Here are my results. And start breaking it down to the lowest common denominator. And listen. It might take you more than 2 years. It might take you more than 3 years. So what? So what if it takes you? Because life is going to happen. And sometimes we can't even forecast what's coming to us. Right? Like sometimes we can't even begin to imagine what's coming to us. So if getting to your goals takes you longer than the next person, it's okay. We are not racing really against time. I think what we're trying to achieve as millennials is feeling a sense of, I got this, I'm good, and I'm comfortable. And if we switch our mindsets from I'm racing against time to I'm comfortable, I want to be comfortable, I want to be good, and really set that foundation, I think we'll be better off mentally and emotionally, to be quite honest. And the anxiety has to leave our lives, and we'll be better and make better decisions. So what you want ultimately is the discipline and the fruit to be transferable from one part of your life to the next. So you want that, like what I had given, the example that I had given you about being disciplined in the small things, that I can transfer it now into the big things and do well in it. And that's exactly like what you want, right? So the race against time, like, forget that, right? And if you can't do things in a timely manner because life is happening, so what? So what? And when people are asking you, like, where are you? What are you doing? What are you doing? And it's hard for you to answer, man, just find the confidence in yourself to know, I'm good. I'm at home with my children. I have children and I'm raising them, and that's what I'm doing right now. And be confident in that, because the reality is that people are only going to show you the front of their house. You do not know the inner working of every single person that's in your life or that you come across. So be confident in yourself and knowing that you're okay. And strip away all of the doubt and the fear and get down to being disciplined in yourself and getting down to the lowest common denominator. Let's just get super low and work from there. Trust me. I mean, nothing feels better. So if you're in your 30s and you don't own a home, but you have a financial plan, and next 5 years you're able to like pay for your rent, and like you got like months saved up ahead of you that you could pay for your rent, you can pay for your car note, you can take a vacation, you have an emergency fund, you have just savings. That is being comfortable on some next level, versus trying to have or attain something that is physical that you can't manage yet. That's anxiety. And like, why would anybody want to live that? And why do we try to subject ourselves to those things? Take it easy. God is faithful, and He's given us every tool that we need. Every tool that we need to get through this life. Whether we want to use a tool is up to us. Totally is. So I say, my brothers and my sisters, one day at a time, because we're going to get there. Stop racing against time. Start reaching out to those goals, and start reaching out to just peace and be good, and being good to yourself, and being okay with where you are right now. My name is Colette Alethea. I want to thank you once again for joining me for this podcast. I know it's kind of heavy, but I don't know. It's just something that was very overwhelming for me, turning 30, and I just really wanted to share it with you. My voice is cracking, sorry. I really wanted to share it with you, and I really want to hear your feedback. If you have any feedback, any stories, any advice that you want to share, hit me up on my Instagram page. The link will be in the bio, and find me and let's chat. All right, see you next week. Love y'all, and have a wonderful, wonderful, awesome week.